I am starting to think for the 2020-21 season for the Calgary Flames. I'm about to say we're in trouble, especially the way things are set up for this season in the North All-Canadian Division. Anyway, it's time for another episode of Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to another episode of my Calgary Flames in 6. This is season 3 I'm doing it, and this is episode number 4, where I like to recap how the past 6 games went. For the Calgary Flames, we'll look at games 13 to 18 in the 2020-21 special COVID All-Canadian North Division edition. And I am thinking that the way things have been trending, I think we are in trouble, especially after I recap the games. And there's one game in particular that I had a busy day yesterday, continuing looking at the Stampede Corral demolition progress and taking in the Winter Festival Chinook Blast, which I'll make separate videos on my experiences from that. I didn't have time, and I didn't feel like going to the liquor store to buy something to drink to recap one game. Well, that'll be towards the end, but let's take a look at how the games 13 to 18 went. And I'm going to say the Calgary Flames right now are kind of like what the Vancouver Canucks were a couple weeks ago, and maybe we were the cure for the Vancouver Canucks, as we'll take a look, as we've only played 2 teams. It was Vancouver and Edmonton in this stretch, but let's get going. So if you go back to game 13, we go all the way back to Thursday, February 11th. The Calgary Flames were taking on the Vancouver Canucks at the Rogers Arena, 8 p.m. puck drop, and this was the first of 4 straight against the Vancouver Canucks. There's a lot of this league-wide, especially this upcoming season. It's only playing within division. However, if you're the St. Louis Blues or the Arizona Coyotes, I think you're probably sick of each other. I think they played each other like 7 times given the postponement, so this is only 4 times. And then the first period, the Calgary Flames, this has been a theme for this season, is having trouble starting on time. And it also didn't help that Noah Hannafin in this game took a penalty 4 seconds into the period, but the Flames were able to kill that off. Let's also note that with free agent frenzy, we seem to sign a lot of former Vancouver Canucks. Well, this was the first return for Jacob Markstrom, the goalie, forward or defenseman Chris Tanev, and forward Josh Levo. So this was the first time that those former Canucks, now with the Calgary Flames, made their return to Vancouver. And Louis Dominguez on the taxi squad, but he only played, I think, 1 game in the NHL for the Vancouver Canucks. But I think they did a video tribute of those 3 players, even though there's no fans at the game. So continuing on, despite the Vancouver Canucks having the edge in play, it was Mark Giordano, the captain, who actually scores his 2nd goal of the season past the 18.5-minute mark to make it 1-0 for Calgary. And that's how things stood after the first period. So I still felt the Calgary Flames had a slow start in this game, but at least we were up on the scoreboard after the first period. Second period, I say the Calgary Flames did it better, a little better, but the Vancouver Canucks did have an edge in play. And I'm going to say at this stage, the Vancouver Canucks were looking like they were showing signs of getting out of their funk that they were in at the time, but we'll get to, that they eventually ended their funk. And then just past the 6.5-minute mark, it was Brock Besser for the Vancouver Canucks, who, at this point, it was his 10th goal of the season, ties it up at 1-1. And then Calgary was able to regain the lead 8 minutes later as forward Andrew Mangiapane got his 4th of the season past the 14.5-minute mark. So now we have a 2-1 game for the Calgary Flames. And that's how things stood after the second period. It was 2-1 for the Calgary Flames. So just like after the first period, the Calgary Flames maintained a 1-goal lead. Third period, the Calgary Flames were finally able to get their game going and showing that we were the better team. And it was Johnny Gaudreau, Johnny Hockey's 8th goal of the season, just past the 6-minute mark to make it 3-1 for Calgary at that point. Well, with Jacob Markstrom playing strong with the Calgary Flames now, that's definitely been one of the few bright spots for the Calgary Flames so far this season. Is I think, I say when I made that video at Free Frenzy, when I just talked about Jacob Markstrom, I think we finally found a stud number one goalie since Mika Kiprusoff, and this is his return to first return to Vancouver as a Calgary Flame. So and ultimately the Calgary Flames win this one 3-1. So after the Johnny Gaudreau goal, there was no more goals. So the Calgary Flames win this one 3-1, and this actually pushed at the time the Vancouver Canucks losing skid to 6 straight games. But the Vancouver Canucks did show some signs that they were slowly working their way out of it. And then at this point, this is when things were still looking a little better for the Calgary Flames. They won their 3rd straight game. Vancouver did outshot the Calgary Flames in this game, 34-26 overall. Calgary was led by Mark Giordano, who had a goal and assist, and John Monahan chipped in with 2 assists, and it was Jacob Markstrom, who definitely was the better goalie. He made 33 saves for the Calgary Flames, while Thatcher Demko, the next one for the Vancouver Canucks, he made 23 saves for the Vancouver Canucks in this game. So that was Game 13. So Game 14, this happened on Saturday, February the 13th, at the Rogers Arena, 8 p.m. puck drop on Hockey Night in Canada. Obviously taking the Vancouver Canucks again. 2nd of 4 straight, and was showing that after Vancouver was on their 6-game losing streak and worried about potential changes in management coach, well, the owner, Francisco Alcolini, said they were both going to keep with Jim Benning and Travis Green. Well, definitely showed in this game that the Vancouver Canucks were much more hungrier and desperate in this game, as the Vancouver Canucks were terribly outplaying the Calgary Flames this whole game, but definitely in the first period. There was no score in the report in the first period. However, the ice really tipped the favor of the Vancouver Canucks, as they actually outshot the Calgary Flames 20-4 just in the first period alone. And then also the note, some little bad news for the Calgary Flames, is forward Michael Backlund. He actually left the first period with a lower body injury and did not return in this game. And then the second period, the Vancouver Canucks really continued pressing hard and showing, as I said, they were much more hungry and desperate, and actually were eventually awarded with a goal, as just before the 9.5-minute mark of the second period, it was Quinn Hughes, 2nd of his season at the time, opens up the scoring. So Vancouver had a 1-0 lead, let's say about the halfway point of the second period. However, the Calgary Flames did actually answer back just over a minute and a half later, and Sam Bennett ties it up and gets his 2nd of the season at that point to make it 1-1 at exactly 10:42. So now it's a 1-1 game, even though the Calgary Flames are still hanging around because Jacob Markstrom was playing strong in net. The game stays tied at 1-1 until after the second period, but Vancouver, they continued their strong play, outshooting the Calgary Flames 15-8 in the second period, and at that point, shots were 35-12 for the Vancouver Canucks. Third period, the Vancouver Canucks kept up the pressure and eventually tried to turn their season around. And exactly at the 14:49-minute mark, with traffic in front of net, it was Tyler Myers who tips in the goal. That was his 2nd of the season to get Vancouver up 2-1. At this point, and I felt that moment when Vancouver got that goal, despite the fact that Calgary was barely hanging on, and with the strong play of Jacob Markstrom, I felt when that goal happened, I think this was going to be the Vancouver Canucks game. And it certainly was. Within the final 2 minutes of the third period, Calgary did pull the goalie for the extra attacker. However, it's Brandon Sutter for the Vancouver Canucks, with those 5th of the season. At the time, puts it away in the empty net to make it 3-1 at the 18.5-minute mark, and pretty much was obvious that Vancouver was going to end their losing streak, and they did, as they win this one 3-1 for the first win in 7 games. And what stood out for me is that Vancouver was definitely more desperate and hungrier in this game. And they also outshot the Calgary Flames 46-19 in this game overall. Jacob Markstrom, he definitely made 43 saves for the Calgary Flames, while Thatcher Demko also only made 18 saves for the Vancouver Canucks in the win. Also to note, one of our forward defensemen that we signed in the off-season who played in college, Connor Mackey, he actually made his NHL debut in this game, and he actually slotted in for Nikita Nesterov, so I think maybe there might be some more competition for that 6th defenseman, because it's definitely, we seem to have been sold on our at least top 5 with, Mark Giordano, Rasmus Anderson, and Noah Hannafin, and Chris Tanev have definitely been a nice duel for the 3-4, and then Yusuf Valimaki, yes, he's definitely played well. It's basically been Nikita Nesterov and now Connor Mackey, so let's also make note of that. So that was Game 14. So Game 15, this happened on Monday, February the 15th. I think 3 straight against the Vancouver Canucks. Rogers Arena 8 p.m. puck drop. 3-4, but this was the last time in this 4-game set that the game would be in Vancouver, because the 4th game, the series scene shifts to Calgary. And that's to say, once again, this is the first time you've heard it, the Calgary Flames struggled out of the gate and got into some penalty trouble. That sounds too familiar. Vancouver, just before the 4-minute mark on the power play, actually scores, and it was Tanner Pearson. Scores his 5th of the season to make it 1-0 for Vancouver, just before 4 minutes into the first period. So we're getting too familiar with this starting off slow and allowing the first goal early. Then Vancouver did get another power play goal, as this time was Bo Horvat. At exactly 14:44 makes it 2-0 at that point, and that was where we were at the almost the 50-minute mark of the first period. 2-0 for Vancouver. However, in the final minute of the first period, maybe this helped for the Calgary Flames. It was Milan Lucic who scores his 4th of the season for the Calgary. Puts them on the board with 25 seconds left in the first period. So just like that, Calgary eats into the lead. So it was a 2-1 game for the Vancouver Canucks after the first period. And then Connor Mackey also collected an assist on that goal from Milan Lucic. And also, I should also mention that Michael Backlund also missed this game with the injury. Second period, the Calgary Flames did put in a better effort overall and was able to find a couple goals of their own. First, it was Elias Lindholm, 5th of the season, just past the 10.5-minute mark to tie up the game at 2-2. Then just before just over 5 minutes later, Calgary actually takes the first lead of the game. That was Dylan Dubé gets his 3rd of the season. Just before the 16-minute mark, so Calgary had a 3-2 lead, and that's how things stood after the second period in this one. Calgary now led 3-2. Third period, the Vancouver Canucks did press back looking for the equalizer. However, they can highlight that there was some rough stuff in this one, that Matthew Chuck for Calgary and Jake Pretend of Vancouver took coincidental penalties. Connor Mackey, despite playing a strong game, he seemed to got 3 penalties in this game. However, I think a couple of them were questionable, but that was everything to highlight at this point. With Calgary still leading 3-2 going in the final 2 minutes of the third period, the Vancouver Canucks were playing a lot more aggressive looking for the equalizer, and it was Quinn Hughes who took the tripping penalty against Matthew Tkachuk, giving Calgary a late power play. However, while short-handed, they pulled the goalie with the extra attacker. It was Brock Besser who got his 11th goal of the season with 31 seconds to go in the third period to tie this game at 3-3. So for you, Brock Besser, as I'm going to say, this one needs overtime. However, in overtime, it was very quick, as it was still on that power play, because keep in mind it was a late penalty. Vancouver tied it up short-handed, but Calgary still had the power play going in overtime. It was Johnny Gaudreau who scores his 9th of the season, 23 seconds into the overtime. So the Calgary Flames take this one 4-3 in a fairly loud one. Vancouver did outshoot Calgary overall 33-27 overall, and Calgary only had that one shot in overtime, which was behind the net. Calgary was led by Elias Lindholm. He had a goal and assist. Rasmus Sandgren chipped in with 2 assists, and Vancouver was also led by Brock Besser, who had a goal and assist in this game, and then Tyler Myers chipped in with 2 assists. Jacob Markstrom was in net for Calgary. He made 30 saves, and Thatcher Demko made 23 saves for the Vancouver Canucks. And I already mentioned that Michael Backlund was still injured from the previous game, missed this one. So that was Game 15. So Game 16, this happened on Wednesday, February the 17th. The Calgary Flames were taking on their Vancouver Canucks yet again, but the series and the scene shifts to the Scotiabank Saddle, and it was an 8 p.m. puck drop to wrap up this 4-game set. Michael Backlund actually draws back in the lineup, and that's where kind of say the good news ends for the Calgary Flames, as Calgary, like most of the season, started off flat, and Jordy Ben for the Vancouver Canucks got his first goal of the season just before the 146-minute mark of the first period, so Vancouver takes an early 1-0 lead. Yeah, you've heard that song and dance before. That seems to be the theme. After that quick start, both sides played out the first period, so after that quick goal by Vancouver early, it was 1-0 for Vancouver after the first period. But then the second period, it was late in the second period that I think what sunk things for the Calgary Flames. And I could say second period opened up both sides, felt like they played over some events. And second period opened up for both sides, but Vancouver had the edge in play. First, Vancouver extended the lead to 2-0 as Bo Horvat, who was just before the 8.5-minute mark, or 7.5-minute mark, his 8th goal of the season. So Vancouver now led 2-0 at that point. So in the final 2 minutes of the second period, it felt like ultimately this had sucked the Calgary Flames. First, Andrew Mangiapane got his 5th of the season at 18-13 to make it a 2-1 game. However, it was JT Miller 15 seconds later who scores for Vancouver to make it 3-1. And then Nate Schmidt scored his 2nd of the season 7 seconds later in the final minute of the second period. So it was 4-1, and then Vancouver now enjoys a 4-1 lead after the second period. Third period, Calgary did show some life, but ultimately Vancouver was able to add to the lead as Brock Besser got his 12th goal of the season just before the 6-minute mark of the third period to make it a 5-1 game. And then I say Jacob Markstrom, who started in net for the Calgary Flames, was replaced by David Riddick at the 7:47-minute mark of the third period. Ultimately, this game went to the Vancouver Canucks as they won this one 5-1, and they won 2 out of 3 after losing 6 straight. So ultimately, with this 4-game set, both Calgary and Vancouver split with 2 wins each. However, Calgary actually outshot Vancouver 36-33 overall, but ultimately the slow start and the end of the second period, I think, what sunk the Calgary Flames. Vancouver, well, they were led by Brock Besser, who had a goal, 2 assists. JT Miller and Bo Horvat each had a goal and assist, and then there was Niels Hoglander who also chipped in with 2 assists for the Vancouver Canucks. No one had multi-point games for the Calgary Flames, obviously, when you only scored 1 goal. So Jacob Markstrom made 24 saves for Calgary before he got replaced by David Riddick, who made 4 saves in relief. And then Vancouver actually went with Braden Holtby in this game. He made 35 saves for Vancouver. Also note that Brett Ritchie in this game made his debut drawing into the lineup, and he did provide some spark. And then this was the game that the Calgary Flames also wore their reverse retro, and Blasty didn't look too happy with the outcome of this game. So that is the 4-game set with the Vancouver Canucks. So we split it 2-2 for this stretch of games. So that was game 16. So now game 17, this happened on Friday, February the 19th. The Calgary Flames were now taking on the Edmonton Oilers. This was a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. This was the first of a back-to-back home and home, because the Calgary Flames Edmonton Oilers will play in Calgary this game, and then they'll play in Edmonton the following game. And then this game actually was David Riddick who actually got to start in net for the Calgary Flames, and it was Mike Smith who was starting in net for the Edmonton Oilers. And also to note that Sean Monahan actually was out of the lineup for this game due to a lower body injury. And I felt considering this was the Battle of Alberta, Calgary and Edmonton, where things were at, at the climax of last season, and then it was an interesting game when they first played each other a few weeks ago. This was actually quite tame and vanilla for Calgary and Edmonton. Once again, guess what? The Calgary Flames got off to a slow start, and Edmonton found the net early, as it was Jesse Puljujarvi, who's definitely made a nice comeback for the Edmonton Oilers this season. Got his 5th of the season to give Edmonton a 1-0 lead, 5:41 into the first period. So we just like to keep allowing that first goal and then go out to a slow start. And there was nothing much else to report for goals in the first period. However, Connor McDavid and Mark Giordano always seems to get involved in play. The 2 captains were all in play where Connor McDavid took a holding penalty Mark Giordano late in the first period there. Those 2 definitely have had a history over the years with this rivalry, as being the captains of the respective teams. So Edmonton, after all that, led 1-0 after the first period. Second period was more of the same. It was a very tame and tentative game, given who was playing. This was definitely a not exciting Battle of Alberta in my mind. Goals didn't come until the final 3 minutes of the second period. First, it was Edmonton takes a 2-0 lead just before the 18-minute mark. Was Gaten Haas for the Edmonton Oilers, gets his first of the season. However, 45 seconds later, it was Rasmus Andersson, his 3rd of the season, puts Calgary on the board. So it was 2-1 for Edmonton after the second period, and that's how things stood after the second period. Third period, it looked like both sides were playing it safe, with it being a 1-goal game. Wasn't too many chances. It didn't seem very exciting. There was no urgency on both sides, so there was no score in the board. So actually, Edmonton takes this game 2-1. So now Calgary has lost 3 of their last 4 games after having a 3-game winning streak and kept Vancouver on their slide. But now Calgary's starting to look like they're turning down at this point. This game was less exciting for Battle of Alberta, as I said. Edmonton also outshot Calgary 25-21 overall. The only positive for Calgary in this game is that they played better in this one compared to the previous game against the Vancouver Canucks. I also note in this one is that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, for this game, they were held pointless. Dave Riddick, who made 23 saves for the Calgary Flames, while it was Mike Smith, who made 20 saves for Edmonton in this one. Both teams are going to be back at it the next night up in Edmonton. So that was Game 17. Game 18, this is where I figured it would have been nice if I had something to drink to recap this one. I needed an adult beverage, as I definitely wouldn't need one to talk about this game. And let's just say Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl definitely made up for no points in this game. So Game 18, this happened on Saturday, February the 20th, as the Calgary Flames and Edmonton Oilers were playing each other again, but this time up in Edmonton at Rogers Place for an 8 p.m. puck drop, second of back-to-back and at home and home. Sean Monahan is still out of the lineup with the injury, and this is the first time that Calgary and Edmonton are playing up in Edmonton. And then also to note that forward Glenn Godwin actually made his NHL debut. So we're starting to see some of our younger forwards maybe, drawing into the lineup just to provide some shake-up and provide in some injury. I know that in and out of the lineup throughout this last few weeks, either Jochen Nordstrom or Dominic Simon or even Josh Lebo. So there's definitely seemed to be a rotation for that extra forward. So let's just get to delaying the inevitable here. Didn't feel like going to the liquor store after a busy Saturday, but as I mentioned, I need a drink to recap. So once again, guess what? The Calgary Flames had a slow start, and they took an early penalty by Sam Bennett. And Edmonton actually capitalized on that power play. It was Alex Chiasson who scores his third of the season to give Edmonton a 1-0 lead 3.5 minutes in. And after that goal, Sam Bennett for Calgary and Giordano actually fought for the Edmonton Oilers on that face-off. And the reason for that fight was set up is that when Sam Bennett took that penalty, it was an interference on Slater Kukuk, if I said that name right, who was taken out of the game for that play. So basically it was Giordano standing up for his teammate. And that was definitely an actual fight, so that kind of brought in that Battle of Alberta. However, Edmonton adds the lead as it's Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 8th of the season, to make 2-0 for Edmonton at the 5:41-minute mark of the first period. However, 2 minutes later, actually Andrew Mangiapane scores to get Calgary on the board with the 6th of the season, set up by Matthew Chuck to make it a 2-1 game over the Edmonton Oilers. Did challenge that play for goaltender interference, but the goal was reviewed and counted as good, so Edmonton took a delay of game penalty, but that's where things kind of started going down for the Calgary Flames. As it was late in the first period, Calgary took a penalty just before the 17-minute mark, and Edmonton's one of the better power play teams in the league for obvious reasons. If you're a hockey fan, especially when you have this Connor McDavid guy, well, speaking of Connor McDavid, that was who he capitalized on that power play, as just before the 17-minute mark, Connor McDavid scores 10th of the season at the time to make it 3-1 for Edmonton. So Edmonton took a 3-1 lead after the first period, but Calgary actually outshot the Edmonton Oilers 19-10 in the first period alone, and gave them the score. And the score definitely got a lot uglier after this one. The Calgary Flames actually played all right, but the Edmonton Oilers definitely capitalized on the power play. Second period, it was definitely the Connor McDavid show. It kept on giving. As Connor McDavid scores his second of the game just past the opening minute, and then he gets the natural hat-trick for the Edmonton Oilers past the 8-minute mark. So Edmonton now is up 5-1, and Connor McDavid now has 12 goals on the season at that point. And also at that point, after that third goal by Connor McDavid, that's when Jacob Markstrom got chased out of the net and got replaced by David Riddick. And then, ultimately, past the 11-minute mark, Calgary took another penalty that Edmonton capitalized on, so they had 3 power play goals in this game. It was Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. He had a big game, as he had his second of the game on the power play just past the 12.5-minute mark. So Edmonton now is up 6-1. Yeah, definitely stings to say that. And that's how things stood after the second period. And despite the score, the Calgary Flames weren't entirely terrible, but they definitely got burned on the power play. Especially, with Connor McDavid. And the penalty kill definitely had their hands full in this one. And couldn't contain McDavid in this one. Third period, the Edmonton Oilers got another goal early, 36 seconds in. It was Josh Archibald, fourth of the season, to make it a 7-1 game, and that's kind of where the goals ended, as it was 7-1 for Edmonton at that point, and that was it for scoring. As the Edmonton Oilers, with the help of the power play, outscored the Calgary Flames 7-1. Yeah, this is definitely a game where I could have needed something to drink to recap this one. Despite the score, the Calgary Flames did have some chances at points, but Mikko Koskinen definitely was the better goalie for the Edmonton Oilers on this one, as Calgary actually outshot the Edmonton Oilers 44-24. Overall, Edmonton was obviously led by Connor McDavid. He had 3 goals and 2 assists for 5 points. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, he added 2 goals and an assist. And then there was Darnell Nurse and Leon Draisaitl who chipped in with 2 assists. So after Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl not collecting any points the game before, they definitely made up for it in this game right here. Jacob Markstrom, he made 10 saves for Calgary before he was replaced by David Riddick, who made 7 saves the rest of the way. And then it was Mikko Koskinen, who actually got one of the stars of the game. Stood tall for Edmonton. He made 43 saves for the Edmonton Oilers. So after 18 games, the Calgary Flames are now 8-9-1 in the standings for 17 points. They're 5th in the North Division. And I'm going to say they're looking like they're in trouble, in my mind, especially when we take a look at some stats and standings. So if I bring up the standings, if you look at the North All-Canadian Division, the Scotia North Division, well, the Toronto Maple Leafs are leading the way after 19 games. They're 14-3-2 for 30 points. Now the Edmonton Oilers, they're second in the division. After 20 games, they were 12-8 with 24 points. Then the Winnipeg Jets are third in the division. After 17 games, they're 10-6-1 for 21 points. Then in fourth place, after 16 games, the Montreal Canadiens are 9-5-2 for 20 points. And then below the playoff line, while the Calgary Flames are below the playoff line after 18 games, mentioned they're 8-9-1 for 17 points. Then in sixth place, it's the Vancouver Canucks. After 21 games, they're 8-12-1 for 17 points. And then the Ottawa Senators, after 19 games, they're 4-14-1 for 9 points. So if I'm looking at the standings right now, I mean, we're 3 points behind the Montreal Canadiens, and they have 2 games in hand. We are also 4 points behind the Winnipeg Jets, and they got 1 game in hand. And then when you look at the points percentage, if they need to do the points percentage, if the league can't get all 56 games in for everybody, which is still a possibility, given all the postponements between COVID and then the case with Dallas, they actually had a snowstorm, so there's still the possibility the Calgary Flames won't get in there, and I'm going to say, that's why I'm going to say things are not looking good for the Calgary Flames. They haven't been they've been inconsistent, and the fact that it seems like this team is waiting for something to happen. I mean, there's been rumors about the Sam Bennett wanting out, but I don't know. This team seems to be waiting for something to happen. And then, I mean, do we keep the coaching carousel going, or is it time to potentially move some core players? Don't know, but. And I think things are just not looking good, I'm going to say, in my mind right now for the Calgary Flames. So if you look around the NHL and the Discover Central Division, well, the Carolina Hurricanes are actually first in that division. In 16 games, they're 12-3-1 for 25 points. And then second place, do we finally say that maybe the Florida Panthers deserve some respect? Because they're in second place at 16 games. They're 11-3-2 for 24 points. Well, look at the Chicago Blackhawks. After 19 games, they are 9-6-4 for 22 points. And then in fourth place, it actually is the Tampa Bay Lightning after 15 games. They're 10-4-1 for 21 points. Then below the playoff line, you have the Columbus Blue Jackets. They are, after 19 games, they're 8-7-4 for 20 points. And then the Dallas Stars are 6th, but they've only played 12 games. Between starting off slow with the, having the outbreak, and now with the snowstorm and games being postponed. Well, they are 5-3-4 for 14 points. And then the Nashville Predators, well, I think the Predators are looking like they're needing to sell things off. After 17 games, they're 7-10 for 14 points. And then Detroit's last after 20 games. They're 5-12-3, but we didn't expect Detroit to do anything. They're still rebuilding. But look at the Central Division. It looks wide open And I mean, I think Dallas might be able to get some games in, but we'll see how that goes. And then on the West Division, the St. Louis Blues, after 18 games, they're 10-6-2 for 22 points. And then after 15 games in second place is the Vegas Golden Knights. They're 10-4-1 for 21 points. Then the Colorado Avalanche, after 14 games, I mean, they also had some time from COVID and just getting back at it. After 14 games, they're 9-4-1 for 19 points. Then in fourth place, you actually have the Los Angeles Kings. After 16 games, they're 7-6-3 for 17 points, and then below the playoff line, you got the Arizona Coyotes. After 17 games, they're 7-7-3 for 17 points, and then you got the Minnesota Wild. Well, they're another team that also had some time from COVID. They're 8-6 for 16 points. The Minnesota Wild could still potentially sneak in. Then you have the San Jose Sharks in seventh. They're after 16 games, they're 7-7-2 for 16 points. And then the Anaheim Ducks, I think they're probably running out of real estate. Their last at 18 games, they are 6-9-3 for 15 points. They have trouble scoring. So that's the West Division. The Mass Mutual East Division, which has been looking to be the strongest division. And it's going to be a couple teams that are likely going to be good teams missing the playoffs. Well, first place, you got the Boston Bruins. After 15 games, they're 10-3-2 for 22 points. Second place, you got the Philadelphia Flyers. They are 14 games, they're 8-3-3 for 19 points. And then the Washington Capitals are third. After 16 games, they're 8-5-3 for 19 points. And then you got the Pittsburgh Penguins. After 16 games, they're 9-6-1 for 19 points. And then you got the New York Islanders just behind. After 17 games, they're 8-6-3 for 19 points. Then the New York Rangers are sixth. After 16 games, they are 6-7-3 for 15 points. And then you got the New Jersey Devils. I know they're just getting back, from COVID time off. Is after 12 games, they're 6-4-2 for 14 points. And the Buffalo Sabres are another team that's finally starting to get back and from COVID as well. And after their 14 games are 5-7-2 for 12 points. So that's how things look. So I think going back to the North All-Canadian Division, I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are the best team in the league. The Edmonton Oilers, they're looking like they're starting to get together, especially now that Mike Smith is back. In that, I think the Winnipeg Jets are still looking solid, and the Montreal Canadiens. So I'm going to have to say the Calgary Flames could be in trouble looking at the competition, and they need to start helping their own cause. So that is the standing story. And the quick stats for the Calgary Flames. Well, Johnny Gaudreau leads with 9 goals, and then you got Andrea Pongiapane second with 6. Elias Lindholm, Matthew Tkachuk each with 5 goals, and then Milan Lucic runs at the top 5 with 4 goals. Assists, well, Elias Lindholm leads with assists with 12. And then you got Sean Monahan second with 10, and then you got Johnny Gaudreau with 8. Then the rest is Anderson and Mark Giordano rounding out tied for 4th, for 7th in assists. And then when it comes to points, well, you got a tie between Johnny Gaudreau and Elias Lindholm, each with 17 points. Sean Monahan is third with 12, Matthew Tkachuk with 11, and Rasmus Anderson tied with, or in 5th place with 10 points. So that's just the quick standings, or for players when it comes to leading scorers. However, when it comes to points in the NHL, well, the top 5, well, you got Connor McDavid leads with 37 points. Leon Draisaitl and Mitch Marner are tied for second with 30. And then Austin Matthews is 4th with 29 points. And then Patrick Kane rounds at the top 5 at 26 points for Chicago. So still a lot of the scoring. I mean, the North All-Canadian Division actually is the highest scoring division on average right now. So it's definitely been exciting, but still tough right now where the Calgary Flames are at. I did make that video for the season where I figured what being in the All-Canadian Division hurt the Calgary Flames if they were compared playing in the traditional Pacific Division. So, I mean, that's kind of the other ways how you reevaluate the season. But how the season series look with the Calgary Flames in the North All-Canadian Division, well, after 6 games against the Vancouver Canucks, we have 4 more to go. We are 4-2 against the Vancouver Canucks. And then against the Edmonton Oilers, are now 1-2. We have 7 more games to go. And then the Winnipeg Jets, well, we have 4 more games to go as we're 2-1. And then the Toronto Maple Leafs, well, we have still 7 more games to go, but we're 0-2 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. We have not played the Ottawa Senators yet. And then the Montreal Canadiens, we are 1-1, so we have 7 more games to go against the Montreal Canadiens, but right now it looks like the top four is Toronto, Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Montreal. So we still have to help our own cause, but I just think it's starting to look like what the Calgary Flames are now, what the Vancouver Canucks were a couple weeks ago. So before we look ahead, I make this new statement as of the last episode with the Stockton Heat playing here in Calgary for the season. I think this might be a permanent thing that I'll do in my Calgary Flames game recaps is Stockton Heat quick hits. So let's bring that legend card. So when it comes to the Stockton Heat, well, they have not played yet in the 2020-21 AHL season, as they only scheduled the first 4 games for the Stockton Heat, basically for the rest of February. So in the next episode, we'll actually have scores they'll share with the Stockton Heat. As the first 4 games of the season for the Stockton Heat, they're all going to play right here in Calgary, and all against the Toronto Marlies. So the first game would be on Sunday, February 21st, and that'll be a 2 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And then game 2 will be on Thursday, February 23rd. That would be a 6 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. Game 3 will be on Wednesday, February 24th, the next night. That will be a 6 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And then game 4 will be on Friday, February 26th. Will be a 2 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. The Stockton Heat will play the Toronto Marlies in all 4 games. So that's the only schedule we have for the Stockton Heat as of this recording that I found. And I think the AHL is just going to gradually release the schedule. Is that it sounds like they're not actually going to have a playoffs and release a Calder Cup champion in 2021. But when you look at how they realign the divisions in the American Hockey League, it'd be kind of tough to do anyway. But at least they're going to play games with the American Hockey League. And just between the travel restrictions with COVID, the Stockton Heat, at least they're still going to be called the Stockton Heat, but they are moved shop right here in Calgary. And then because of the fact that you already have the Calgary Flames and the Stockton Heat playing in Calgary, they actually pushed out the Calgary Hitmen. As I made a separate video, that the Calgary Hitmen, well, they will be still not going to be playing their season, not for a couple weeks, and they're only going to play teams in the Central Division. The Calgary Hitmen are actually going to play their home games at the Seven Chiefs Sportsplex in Tutina Nation. So once the Calgary Hitmen gets going, I'll do my Calgary Hitmen game recap, same thing I do with the Calgary Flames. So now let's look ahead to the next 6 games for the Calgary Flames. That will be the next episode where I'll talk about games 19 to 24. And this past episode, we had a heavy dose of Western Canada with the Vancouver Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers. Well, now we're going to have a heavy dose of Ontario with the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. Maybe this is what the Calgary Flames need. Maybe a trip out east to maybe work on whatever is ailing them right now, or who knows. But Game 19, this will be on Monday, February the 22nd, as the Calgary Flames will continue on the road as they started their road trip last night in Edmonton. Well, they are going to be taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs in Toronto at the Scotiabank Arena. That would be a 5 p.m. puck drop. All times I give are Mountain Time. So that will be Game 19. Game 20, this will be on Wednesday, February the 24th. The Calgary Flames will take on the Toronto Maple Leafs again at the Scotiabank Arena, 5 p.m. puck drop. And then Game 21, this will happen the next night on Thursday, February 25th, as the Calgary Flames will take on the Ottawa Senators for the first time this season. The Battle of the Kachucks. This will now be in Ottawa at the Canadian Tire Centre. That'll be a 5 p.m. puck drop. And then Game 22, this will be on Saturday, February the 27th, I meant to say. The Calgary Flames will take on the Ottawa Senators again. This will be some afternoon delight, or very late morning delight, as the game will start at 11 a.m. at the Canadian Tire Centre. I'm assuming that will also be on CBC or Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada, or Hockey Day in Canada. So that will be Game 22. And then Game 23, the Calgary Flames will play the Ottawa Senators again in Ottawa. And this will be at a 5 p.m. puck drop at Canadian Tire Centre, so Monday, March 1st. And then Game 24, this will be on Thursday, March the 4th. If you guessed the Calgary Flames will be taking on the Ottawa Senators, you are correct. So we'll have a back-to-back against the Toronto Maple Leafs and then a 4-game straight series against the Ottawa Senators. However, for Game 24, the scene will shift to Calgary. So on Thursday, March the 4th, the Calgary Flames will come back home to play the Ottawa Senators at the Scotiabank Stadium 7 p.m. puck drop. So not going to get a little easier for the Calgary Flames, as we definitely got burned by Connor McDavid. Well, Austin Matthews has also been on a scoring tear himself with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then you'll mention Mitch Marner is also in the top 3 in scoring. But the Calgary Flames defense and special teams has definitely slipped a little bit recently, and just the starting on time has definitely been an issue for the Calgary Flames. And just looking at the North Division right now, I'm thinking we're teetering on being in trouble right now, but we'll see how this next episode pans out if we definitely don't make any hay, especially against the Ottawa Senators, and depending on how everybody else plays. I'm not planning on there being playoffs for the Calgary Flames this season, just the way how the playoff format works. But I just say, what do you think of the Calgary Flames right now? I mean, are they waiting for something to happen, or is it just one of these funks that every team goes through? But I'm going to say we're looking like the Vancouver Canucks, where they were a couple weeks ago, where they're having some, maybe internal issues, or not sure how to break it down right now, but it's not looking good right now. So to close it out, as I say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, home the Flames hitting the Roughnecks and Stampeders, just make sure you like, subscribe. I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, but I also do a variety of other content like personal blogs, attempt to comedy, and also do share my experience at, say, I'm on the road or a sport event. So if that all sounds like you'd be interested to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, you know what you can do. Just make sure you like, subscribe. I also have my other social links down in the description below. So I'm going to still say go Flames go, but I'm just not liking how things are looking 18 games into this 56-game season, and looking at, I'm going to say it's clear right now, we are not a top 4 team in the North All-Canadian Division. Right now, looking at division, and we only play each other, and we definitely got to have some work to do. I mean, I figure we need to make some hay against the Ottawa Senators, and at very worst, we need to get a split against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So yeah, Flames-Leafs games, given how the first 2 games happened here in Calgary, could things get a little more interesting, especially Matthew Ducks during the pot, with that Jack Campbell, controversy, and then that Jake Musson. That's something to look forward to at least. And then, of course, the battle of the Canucks with 4 straight against Ottawa. So at least we'll have that to look forward to, but hopefully I'll have better news to recap in the next episode. So I just want to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.